What is the role of religion in our ever-changing world? From the NewsChannel 5 network, this is Issues of Faith.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Issues of Faith. We're talking about an issue that has been in the news a great deal lately, the sex abuse scandal in the Catholic Church and its impact on the Nashville Diocese. I'm happy to have with us someone who has criticized the local diocese for how it has handled the release of credibly accused priests within the Nashville Diocese. We have with us Deacon Ron Deal. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you, Ben.
So in November, the diocese voluntarily released the names of 13 former priests, credibly accused of abusing minors. No one on the list was currently serving. These are names that date back many years. I did a story on that, and I did a story with you, and you voiced some concerns right after those names were released. What are your concerns?
Well, first of all, I think it's important to understand that this has been going on for a while in the church. Dating back to 1985 is sort of the modern era of when the sexual abuse crisis first came out, and then 2002 Boston was when everything came out. But going back to August, when the Pennsylvania grand jury released the names of over 1,000 victims and 300 priests, that set off the current firestorm. And now there are so many states looking at it, but what happened is that in early October, the diocese proposed to send out a list of 9 names. I questioned that list. First of all, the diocese had previously identified 7 people back in 2004. Now it's 9. I questioned the omission of a name. That led to the diocese saying, you know, accuracy and transparency matter, we'll hold the list. That led to the early November disclosure of 13 names, which then the diocese corrected a week later with some additional assignments, many relating to service to youth, whether it's Catholic Scouting or the Catholic Youth Office. But also, they put 3 of the 6 names that SNAP, the Survivors Network of Those Abused by Priests, they had presented those names, and the diocese added those to the list. So this is sort of a moving target. The diocese can't seem to get it right. My other question is, who else is looking at the files other than the diocese? I know periodically they have said, well, we've offered to share the information with the authorities, but the authorities aren't interested. Well, there's 14 states right now that have independent investigations going on. According to an article in USA Today, the Pennsylvania Attorney General has been contacted by 45 states asking, hey, how'd you go about doing this? We have made inroads, SNAP, myself, we've made inroads via the legislature to try to get the Attorney General in Tennessee to do something.
You would like an independent investigation, is that right? You've said the Catholic Church can't be trusted to investigate itself, is that right?
It's not just me saying that. The Attorney General of Illinois came out right before Christmas, and they found 500 names that the various dioceses in Illinois had not disclosed. And she was very pointed in her public comments of saying the Catholic Church cannot investigate itself. That's the argument I'm making. You know, when you consider that the diocese has couched all of these disclosures in terms of who has been credibly accused, credible by whose standard? Because the diocese is the only institution that's been investigating.
And you've raised these questions, and it's come at some personal cost. You are a deacon. Deacons are not part of the priesthood, but they're ordained ministers, right, within the Catholic Church. As a result of your public disagreement, you've been removed. Now they say again, the diocese says you're not suspended, but you're not allowed to, what, I guess, preach in front of...
I'm not allowed to engage in diaconal ministry in my assignment, which is to Holy Family Parish in Brentwood. The pastor, I met with him in late November, and his position was that as long as you are carrying on a public disagreement with the diocese, it's not appropriate for you to be in ministry here in the parish. To which I would say, well, this has been going on since early October, me trying to get the diocese to sit down and talk about my concerns, and was not getting any response whatsoever. Matter of fact, right before I came in for that first interview, I received a telephone call more or less threatening me, if you do this, you're going to be putting yourself in opposition to the bishop, don't do it. And I politely hung up and went ahead and did it because this issue needs to be brought to the fore. All that said, while this was going on, I may be in public disagreement. It didn't stop me in late October from preaching one entire weekend on seminarian education and the benefit to the diocese and raising money for seminarian education, to which I'd say it's possible to be in disagreement on something and still be a passionate advocate for the church. And that's all I want. I want the church to live up to the ideals to which it seeks to hold everyone else.
So it says you can return when the public disagreement is resolved. That's what the diocese has said. When do you think you will be returning?
I don't know that I will be returning, because if you believe the director of communications, he said, well, the public disagreement will end if you will quit publicly criticizing the church. Until the church starts getting out ahead of this issue, until there is an independent investigation, I don't know that I will be returning. And I hate that, but this issue is too important. I could sit down and be quiet, but I've gone this far. I'm going to see this through. When
we did a story, when the diocese released these names, again, I believe it was November 2nd, they released the names of 13 priests that were credibly accused. I, prior to that, sat down with the bishop, J. Mark Spalding, and asked him, is this a complete list? And I want to play now his response. So this was what he said in November when this list was released. How confident are you this is a complete list?
I feel that it's as confident as I can be. You know, I've asked my personnel to research. It does us no good to keep any name back. The more we can be transparent, the more we can be accountable, the better off I am, the diocese is, our church is. So I can only say in the most clear way, I have said, give us the full list, as tough as that may be, so our people will know.
So there he's saying it does us no good to hold any name back.
I agree.
Are you aware of any name that has been held back?
I'm aware that SNAP has presented additional names, that SNAP has what it says are victims that have come to SNAP, and those names have been submitted to the diocese. Why didn't the diocese disclose them? I would submit it's because the diocese said, well, they're not credible allegations. Again, credible by whose standard? If you're the only ones who are doing the investigating, you've got something to be gained by not disclosing particularly damaging information. And I would go a step further, even beyond this report. After all of that had come out, I discovered that in 2014, one of your competitors had aired a report on a Father Gansman who had served at St. Vincent Parish in North Nashville in the late 60s, early 70s. Father Gansman had been disclosed on a list from Minnesota. One of your competitors actually went to the diocese and asked about Father Gansman, and the director of communications said, yes, we're aware of that, and we're aware of an allegation made against him when he was in service to St. Vincent. Father Gansman wasn't on that list that the diocese released in November. Why not? They're the only ones who are looking at the files. They're the only ones who have access to the files. And they can't seem to get the story straight. It went from 7 names to 9 names to 13 names to, well, we'll add these 3 other names. We'll add some assignments that we had missed. There's no hard and fast rule on how the files are kept. And I think it requires an independent set of eyes opening everything and asking hard questions, asking some questions of who's had access to the files, where have the files gone to over the years. Another complicator, Ben, is, you know, up until 1970, the Diocese of Nashville was the entire state. In 70, Memphis split off. In 1988, East Tennessee split off. So priests who may have been in the Diocese of Nashville may suddenly find themselves in the Diocese of Memphis or in Knoxville. Where are their files? Did the entire file get transmitted? You know, and that's been an issue that the church has faced a lot. That was one of the big issues in Boston, was priests that were moved from parish to parish or from diocese to diocese or indeed from state to state, which has drawn the interest of the federal government. Did the files go with them? What information was given to the receiving diocese about this individual? That has been a case here as well. A priest of the Diocese of Nashville who has gone to Georgia, to Arkansas, to Kentucky. What information was given?
They may be released on a list from another diocese, because we're seeing this all across the country. But yeah, that does complicate things. Now, when this list came out in November, SNAP, the Survivors Network of those abused by priests, said it was incomplete. And I asked this question, I ask it of you, I think it's important. Are you aware of any priest currently serving that should be on that list?
I am not.
So there's nothing, what we're talking about is past, as far as you know.
As far as I know, yes. I'm not the one who receives the complaints. I'm not the one at the diocese who's investigating, is this credible or not?
And now the communications person has said to another outlet, if someone comes forward that indicates that somebody should be added to the list, we're certainly willing to evaluate it and take it to our review board.
We're willing to evaluate it. We're willing to take it to our review board. These are all internal forums. They are hardly independent. I'm not questioning the veracity, the sense of involvement that the individual members of the review board might have, except to say they're all appointed by the diocese. And they're only looking at information that is put in front of them by the diocese. Do we know that the diocese has released all of the information for the review board to look at? We don't know that.
The diocese has also said that they've opened their files. If someone wants to come, someone meaning a law enforcement organization or the Attorney General or the DA, they're free to come. What do you think of that?
A couple of things. One, if you go look at Pennsylvania, 300 priests, 1,000 victims, only 2 criminal charges could be pursued. So you get into issues of, you know, when do the statutes of limitation run on criminal charges, on civil litigation. I don't think a district attorney is going to investigate a case that is 40 years old. But that doesn't mean that that case that's 40 years old doesn't need to be disclosed. You know, the diocesan attorney whom I've known for 10, 15 years, he and I traded emails, and his response to me, he took off his attorney hat for a minute and put on his Catholic hat and said, what good is served? The priest is dead, you know, everyone's dead, you know, so what if Father so-and-so got moved from parish to parish? What good has served? Has it helped Pennsylvania? I think that's an incredibly sad commentary. Not everyone's dead. A lot of the survivors, they're still alive. They're still struggling with this. And, you know, it's even particularly telling is, you know, the Diocese of Buffalo is sort of ground zero right now. There was a report on 60 Minutes. There's all kinds of things coming up. Bishop Malone in Buffalo is under fire right now. His immediate predecessor was Edward Kimmick, who was 2 bishops ago was the Bishop of Nashville. And I asked the attorney, I said, God forbid they find something in Buffalo involving Bishop Kimmick. They're going to start looking back here. Better to get out in front of it, to have an independent investigation. Remove yourself from the process entirely. Let someone who does not have a vested interest in it take an independent look.
All right, we have to take a break. Then I'm going to come back and say, when you say an independent investigation, I guess who are we talking about? Is it the Attorney General? Is it the District Attorney? And how willing do you think they are to take something like that on? But we'll take a break. We'll be back right after this.